The verdict from Brussels was pretty clear, right? Is that, look, they were very polite with Theresa May, but there wasn't enough progress to warrant a summit in November. What does that mean in terms of potential outcomes? Are we closer to a no deal, or is it just going to be an 11th hour agreement?
No, I believe there will be a deal. This is so blindingly obvious that to everybody's advantage to have some deal reached, because history won't forgive them if they don't. And I also believe that an extension of the transition period doesn't really serve much of a purpose, because by getting more time, you won't solve any of the underlying problems. You might as well get on with it now, make the decisions, and get it done one way or the other. So what we need most of all is more certainty about where this is all going. So that's why an extension doesn't really solve anything.
But how do you deal with the Irish border? I mean, it was my understanding that the only, I guess, positive of extending would be to find a kind of technical solution, right? So the technology would enable to have a hard border, but with a soft, hard border.
Oh, I believe with the Irish question, I would deal with by keeping the Britain in the customs union with the EU, but renegotiating the customs union, allowing Britain to have some third-party negotiations about trade agreements with the US and Japan and others, which the Europeans don't do, because you need the approval of all the European countries for that. So there has to be some give and take as to how to define the customs union. But that's the way forward.
David, I have been thunderstruck by the grimness of opinions on Brexit. I'll start with Barry Eichengreen out at Berkeley with a really grim view of the future of the United Kingdom. Is it a diminishment of the rate of economic growth, or are you willing to say, and your economic team willing to say, that there'll be a level change in economic growth?
Well, I'm in the opposite camp from Barry. I believe that, yes, there will be a price to pay, obviously, through the adjustment. I believe that over a 20-year horizon, 30-year horizon, the UK will do just as well or better than the European Union. But the adjustment is going to be painful. I think it is immature to think that this is about 2 or 3% of GDP. Exiting the European Union is about much more. It's a deeper issue than that. And so I believe, yes, over a generational period, the UK is going to come out looking just fine. The UK economy has a certain flexibility. It has it in its genes to do well, to be innovative. It doesn't have this bureaucratic construct that the Europeans have to struggle with, and it's got flexible exchange rates. So I think that this will come out just fine, but there is a price to pay.
Okay, Francine and I got to make some news today. Are you telling me Deutsche Bank's going to take out a long-term lease on the wall? I mean, everybody's talking about the end of London as we know it. You're one of the iconic members of the London business scene. Is there going to be a long-term lease for Deutsche Bank at the wall?
Well, I can't comment on it, obviously, but I see you have a nice new building here in London, and you obviously must think London is a good place, and so do we.
There you go, Tom. Well said. David Volkers-Landau versus Tom Keene, 1-0. When you look at pound,
got that right.
David, could we see a big fall if something were to, go wrong, were to crash out? I mean, the concern is that you're negotiating, right? But Theresa May is negotiating with her own party, the pro-Brexiters, and then she's also, I guess, negotiating with Labour if she's going to push it through Parliament, and she's negotiating with the EU.
Well, clearly, if these negotiations go badly and no agreement is reached and it looks as if there's some kind of disorderly exit, that is going to undercut the pound. And I could easily see it going from 131 to 125 or thereabouts and stabilize there and then gradually find its way back up. Obviously, the market will react to that.
What will this economy look like in 10 years? So when you say, is it a tax haven? Does it become a services, Singapore-like based economy? It
will have to be an export-driven economy. There's no doubt about it. That the UK is internationally, has an international outlook. The UK is much more global in outlook than the European Union. The European Union is a very inward-looking place. And the UK will need to do trade agreements with the rest of the world, Commonwealth, Canada, US, Japan, and places like that, and then use its outstanding education system and technology, and so I don't like to compare it to Singapore, but the UK has a real possibility of doing well, and financial services. UK was a global financial center before the Europeans were even democracies, and to think that all of a sudden that's all going to go away and move to Frankfurt or to Paris, I think is lunacy. London is going to remain a global financial center. So that's going to be a source of GDP growth. But UK will be okay.